My ex-boyfriend formed a conspiracy with his police officer girlfriend and friends to weaponize the government to try to get me swatted. Hello guys. Apologize. I couldn't post for the longest time because some crazy far out shit happened to me. This has literally been the craziest year of my life. I've never had anything like this happen to me. Long story short, I got pretty much every single device that I own hacked into, and I literally I couldn't post or use the internet for almost 2 months because of it. So for context and a little bit of backstory, my ex-boyfriend and we actually broke up back in December 2024. And to me, this seemingly came out of nowhere because we didn't really have any fights, we didn't really have any tiffs or any arguments or anything leading up to that point. It just kind of came out of nowhere. And then we didn't speak for months, and one day on March 3rd, he just suddenly called me out of the blue, and we spoke for almost 2 hours straight. And he basically said, "Hey, I'm so sorry, I was wrong, I did everything horrible to you, I did this and that, and I really apologize." And he came back to me asking for me back. Now, remember this because this is going to be important later on in the story. Now, around April or May is kind of when I started getting a really weird vibe from him. Like really uneasy, kind of suspicious feeling about him. And I'm going to share with you why way later on, because right now there's more important stuff to focus on. But I will tell you why later on. And basically we ended up breaking up in, I think it was May. Yeah, it was like at the end of May. And in June, I would end up hiring a private investigator to look into this guy. Now, for context and a little bit of backstory, my ex has a PhD. He actually previously used to work for some companies related to national security. So he actually has security clearance for his job. Remember this because it's gonna become relevant later on to the story. So all the pieces are going to start coming together once I go through the series of events and tell you every single thing that happened in sequence. Some of them might be out of order, as I forget about them every now and then and put them in later. But okay, so let me start with part one. I think first thing I did was I reached out to my apartment complex about an Android 15 that accessed my Butterfly app back in June. And this app is actually used to open gates at my apartment complex. And I see that this Android was accessed on a weekend or a day that I was not at home. So I was slightly concerned about this, and I knew that my ex had an Android. My ex had a Samsung Galaxy. Then on July 9th, I look in my Amazon account and I notice there are some subscriptions that I don't recognize. And I do a little bit of digging and I noticed that a lot of these were made when I was not home at my house. I was most likely up visiting my parents, and I know that one of these dates says March 7, 2025. I was actually up in Orange County. I had a dental appointment. I also would later call this dental location and they confirmed with me that I did actually go and have my appointment on March 7th. And some of these subscriptions I didn't even recognize. Like BritBox, I was like, what the fuck is BritBox? I never even heard of that. I looked it up and it's apparently some sort of British TV program. Now bear in mind, all of these subscriptions, they happen to be made on a day I was either not at home or a day that my ex happened to be visiting me. He was at my house. And there were times back in like around May or April around then, he would be at my house and for some reason his phone would be in airplane mode. And I'd be like, why is your phone in airplane mode? But I didn't really think much of it at the time, you know what I mean?
Now, here's a video of me ordering. I actually tried to make 2 different orders during Amazon Prime deal. I tried to order one MacBook Pro, along with 2 biometric lock boxes. For some reason, when I looked the next day, my entire order history had disappeared. And I ordered these 2 lock boxes specifically because I had seen signs of entry in my apartment, in my place of living, so many times, starting from June. But in this Amazon order that I made, entire order history disappeared. So the next day, my entire order history disappeared. I saw that. So I saw, while it was still Amazon Prime deal, I tried to order a MacBook Pro again. And again, I couldn't, because for some reason, the second that I made this order, it was just mysteriously gone. It was gone from my app. Like, you can't even see it. And if you look at this video right here, you can actually see only the Apple Care exists in my order history. But my MacBook Pro is gone entirely. And then I didn't find out until like maybe almost a 1 month later, like weeks later. It was almost a month later I signed into my Amazon, and I discovered that it had been canceled. All these orders have been canceled, and I was not the one who canceled them.
I also see quite a few subscriptions on Apple TV, and I'm not really an Apple TV user. And so I was concerned about some of these subscriptions. I reached out to Amazon customer service associate through chat. And I end up chatting, I actually screen record this too. I screen record my conversation with a guy named Ashok. And he claims that these subscriptions are coming from my two TVs. So then I go to Amazon.com and I look in my account, and I notice that there's actually 3 devices. There's 2 TVs listed and 1 web browser. But then I go in my app and I actually see 4 things listed. There's 3 TVs and 1 web browser. And I was like, that's weird. Why are they showing different things? Shortly after that, I look into my Amazon account settings, and I notice that there's 12 apps signed into my Amazon account. Now, surely some of these could be mine, but definitely not all 12. Thursday evening around 7:40, July 10th, I sign into my AT&T account, and I noticed 2 Androids were signed into my AT&T Wi-Fi, and they were showing active within the last hour. And I actually took a video of these 2 Androids, and I don't know if it's called MAC or MAC address, but I took video of their MAC address. Now, full disclosure, I am primarily an iPhone person. I've always been an Apple person for the past, 8 years or something like that. But I did buy a Samsung Galaxy, I think it was an S22 or S23, and I bought it in January 2025, this year. And the reason why I bought it is to store model release forms and raw videos and other things like that on it. And because I noticed that the camera is much better on the Galaxy than it is on the iPhone. Now, something really strange was happening with this Android that I bought. It's not something that I really used often. I maybe used it once every couple of weeks or something. I'd basically use it to film something and then insert a hard drive into it and then stick the hard drive in the computer, transfer files and videos that way, right? Now, something really weird was happening with this Android. It would every now and then, it'd make a beeping sound, it sounded like one of those test sounds that you hear from the TV. So it would happen once every 12 to 24 hours, something like that. I don't remember exactly, but it was something like that. Frequently enough, but not that frequently. At the time, I just assumed it was just a random Samsung update, so I didn't really think much about it. I just put my phone on airplane mode, put it on silent, and it was still doing that for the past couple weeks. It would be so turned it on silent, put it in airplane mode, and it was still fucking beeping. So here's the thing though, since I put my phone in airplane mode for at least the last 24 hours, there's no way one of these Androids could have been mine, right? Showing active within the last hour. And even assuming one of these Androids is mine, where did the other one come from? That's what I don't understand. Even assuming one of those was mine, the other one is still a mystery. And they both have completely unique, different, separate MAC numbers. So on June, I think it was 1st or 2nd, I can't remember if it was 1st or 2nd, but I had my ex sign a contract when he was at my place. He came down to my place to drop off my things, and I requested him to sign a holographic contract. And he requested me to write it down, so I said, okay, sure, I'll write it down. I know that holographic contracts are supposed to be written by the person signing them. So then I recorded a video of him reading out this contract and then asked him a series of questions afterwards. to determine whether he was actually okay with signing this contract.
I attest that all content featured will be deleted from all social media, including but not limited to Twitter or X, Reddit, Pornhub, X videos, minivids, Red Gifs, TikTok, Lemon8, Instagram, OnlyFans, Fans of Fat Life. All content will be deleted upon request.
And you are not doing this under duress or because you were coercion, are you?
No, it's just, you're fine.
No, like legally I have to ask this. Are you doing this under duress or coercion? You are doing this under your own free will. Are you under the influence of any drugs or alcohol?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Well, hold on. It's either a yes or no.
Oh, no.
Okay, perfect. Great, thank you very much.
And this contract was basically saying that he is to take down all content featuring me by, I gave him a date of July 30th. Okay, remember this date. So later on June 20th, I would actually end up hiring a private investigator to look into my ex. And the reason was because I had found quite many things that he was lying to me about that really didn't make sense. It really did not add up. But I'm gonna get into all that later. That's like, seriously, it's gonna be its own whole separate video because that shit is so long. It's gonna be too fucking long to explain right now. I'm just gonna go into the fucking facts right now, okay? I sent this message to this private investigator. And I distinctly remember choosing this private investigator because I was looking at a bunch of different private investigators' faces, and some of them I could definitely tell they were like really stern and kind of like strict and rigid. You can actually see like their face, like they're like kind of like authoritarian. So I didn't want to hire those people. I actually specifically hired this guy because I looked at his photo and I thought he has a nice smile. So this guy told me that for a $2,500, it would be like a package deal, and I would get like 6 months history with his vehicle, like wherever his vehicle has been for the past 6 months. Like a full background check, like a list of people he's been talking to most. Those are like the 3 primary things that he promised me with this $2,500 package. So on June 20th, I sent this guy a $2,500 Zelle payment. Now keep this fact in mind because it's going to be relevant later on. Now I would also like to add that yes, my ex worked for some pretty important places, but I wasn't investigating anything to do with his workplace or the country. But this is where like the conspiracy starts forming, okay? I was actually like digging into my ex for romantic and personal reasons. And this private investigator eventually got back to me, but it was lacking a lot of the information that I asked for. Like, there was no information about his vehicle. You didn't even know what his license, like driver's license plate was. Which I thought it was a little weird. I was like, he's a private investigator. Can he easily find that out? And yeah, the only thing he gave me was a criminal record that had some expunged, I don't know, infractions or something on it. I was like, it's probably minor. I don't know what that is. It's expunged, so I can't see it, right? And the other thing that he sent me was like his most frequently called list. My ex's most frequently called list, right? And I noticed a particular name on there, named Melissa Q. I'm not going to say her full name, but her name is Melissa Q. And she was previously one of his co-workers at one of these companies. But what really did not make sense to me is that she showed up as his most frequently contacted person from 2020 to 2025. Now, my ex only worked there from 2022 to 2024. So it begs the question, where does he know this woman from? And that was actually one of the reasons why I confronted him and asked him about her, because I was like, dude, who is this person? He was like, oh, that's just my coworker from blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, you worked there in 2024, so what's your deal? Like, why are you being so sneaky? What's going on? Naturally, finding this left me with far more questions than answers. I was like, what the fuck? How the fuck does he know her? So that's when I wanted to dig into this guy even more, right? So I wasn't really sure where to turn to, because it's like, okay, I paid $2,500 for a private investigator. I didn't get as much information as I thought I would. I really didn't think I got like that good of a deal out of it. So I ended up going to this website called Fiverr.com, and I searched for private investigators. I made an account under the username Justice for June, and I would actually search for a private investigator and an audio engineer. And I'll go into why I hired this audio engineer later too. It's actually because my ex deleted 2 or 3 videos containing him from one of my hard drives that he borrowed that actually had incriminating evidence about him.
Now, I don't know if people are familiar with Fiverr and the sort of services that you can buy on there, but I've bought some pretty cool things on Fiverr. One time, I got somebody to clean up my resume. Another time, I got somebody to hand draw a photo of my dog. Another time, I got an opera singer to sing happy birthday to my dad.
So I remember on the morning of July 11th, after I hired these private investigators on Fiverr, I called the original private investigator and I told him that I'd hired another second private investigator. And he seemed like a little bit irritated. I figured maybe it was just because he thought I was like undermining his work or something. But he was like, you are to tell me every single thing that they say to you. And I was like, yeah, that's what I was planning. That's why I called you. And then he hung up the phone on me. I mean, that's the whole reason why I called the first PI, right? Because I was like, hey, I hired these other private investigators. Can you like cross-reference and like make sure everything that they're telling me is actually accurate? You know, I wanted to make sure that I was getting an accurate report, and I figured this PI would actually, you know, help me with that. And I don't know why, but this PI was just really upset with me, and I figured it was just because, you know, I'd hired a second private investigator. I figured that's why he didn't like that at the time. Well, shortly after I hung up on this PI, or after he hung up on me technically, shortly after we hung up, I looked in my computer and I noticed like multiple folders that I had downloaded about my ex were all modified, same date and same time. It was modified, it said like July 10th. I think it was around like 4:20 or something like that. So it was all modified, same day, same time. They're like only 1 minute apart. There's like 3 folders. I think one's called like his name, suspicious text, his name, suspicious emails, and then there's like an entire WhatsApp chat that I had actually downloaded between the two of us. And all 3 of those folders were modified same date and time. And I actually distinctly remember that I had not opened this WhatsApp chat since June. So I was like, okay, this folder was definitely modified because I didn't open this chat since June. I did not open it July 10th or whatever it was saying. Now, sometime in mid-May, I think it was like May 14th or something like that, I started getting suspicious of my ex, and I like went through his phone while he was sleeping, and I noticed I snapped a photo of these following things. Now, I'm gonna elaborate about all this later because this is gonna go into a whole different zone. But I distinctly remember after I confronted my ex about some of this stuff, his first reaction was, you might have implanted some sort of Trojan or virus into my phone. And I was like, that's a fucking weird thing to be concerned about, you know? Now, some of you might say, oh, you know, your ex probably did this because it was like, you know, he was afraid or something, he was doing this in self-defense. And I actually completely disagree. I actually have lots of evidence to suggest he was always planning this all along. I'll talk extensively much more about this later, but one of the notable examples that comes to mind is that on March 17th, he sent me some documentation supposedly claiming that his former employer was wrongfully terminating him. And I didn't notice it at the time because I was just like zooming in on the body. You have to bear in mind this is over WhatsApp, this is over a phone. So like you're not looking at the whole document, I'm just kind of zooming in to try to see the letters, right? So I didn't notice until way later, until after I got hacked into, that this actually says Exhibit C on the top. Exhibit C. And on the bottom left, it says template date. And I was like scratching my head. I was like, Exhibit C. That actually means this was placed as evidence in a courtroom or a hearing or a trial or something. That's what the word exhibit for. And Exhibit C means it was a defendant's exhibit. So I was like, this is definitely not a real contract from his employer. But I didn't notice that until way later, right? And also I didn't notice until way later that it said template date on the bottom left. So obviously this was some sort of document or form that he found on the internet. He altered it and then sent it to me. So that's actually one of the many things that actually proves that he was planning this all along to do this to me.